Bombad.
To the Bombadcast.
What is going on in Bombad fam? It is me, the boy, Scotty Barrow. I'm super stoked to have this show happen today because I am in this crazy kind of scientific, spiritual mood, and I'm ready to get it on. But first, before we go into the rabbit hole that is indeed this episode, I want you to be aware of this. We are part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network. Yes, I got it right for the first time ever. It was like perfect. And with this network, we've got amazing shows on here. We've got Around the Galaxy. We've got Postcards from Galaxy's Edge. We've got Holochronicles. We've got Beyond the Blast Doors Live. We even got a show called Bounty Hunting now that shows up every other couple of weeks. But with all that being said, these are all great and very specific types of shows. You've got shows that deal more with interviews, shows that deal more with cinematic experiences and documentaries, a show that has literally a weekly live news show every day. And then you got a show that deals with collecting, and then you get us, the fanboy, crazy, obsessive, won't stop talking about minute Star Wars details. But all this can be found at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. And of course, if you want to support us, you can follow us and get us at Patreon. Okay, Beyond the Blast Doors Patreon is fantastic. You pay $5 and you get all that one payment of $5 a month goes to all 5 of the shows we have, and it's fantastic. Frankly, we got all kinds of new Patreon perks coming out, and if you join today, more than likely you'll get a very specific thing from Pete, the distributor of these wonderful objects. But make sure you also follow Beyond the Blast Doors on Twitter and Bombadcast on Twitter as well. If you want to stay updated, if you want to be involved, please do it. And one thing I will say for Jerry's sake, Jerry right now, he had this crazy idea for our Halloween episode for you to submit your own scary Star Wars stories. So do us a favor. Go onto our Twitter. You can message us there. You can email us at thebombadcast@gmail.com. He has all the deets on Twitter. Go check it out there too. So I think it's time we should get started with the show. So to bring in the wonderful, the incredibly intelligent, the super duper kind, my wonderful crime, my wonderful partner in crime, the one and only Gerald, the Canold, Junkled. Jerry, what is going on, Jabroni?
Hey, I thought you were talking about someone else for a second there because you started being really nice and all that. Especially after I'm still feeling it after the last episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And stuff. I'm like, I'm shell shocked.
Yeah,
I'm Rick shocked.
Rick shocked.
No. That was a poor choice of words. Ooh.
Rick showed up and he brought the bacon. He brought the bacon.
If by bacon you mean burnt leathery bacon.
What is that from? That's from something.
It's from Anchorman.
Burnt leathery bacon. Yeah, is that
leathery bacon strips?
Bacon?
Is it? Smells like a turd covered in hair.
Yeah, how is it?
Turd covered in burnt hair. That's what it is.
Oh, that's amazing.
It smells like feet wrapped in burnt leathery bacon.
Yes.
Oh, that's actually from burnt leathery bacon. That's from
Is that your pre-show? Is that your pre-show tradition? The noises you made?
Yes.
Don't bring it up.
I'm having one. Brain, no, we're good tonight for a real smart episode. Brain short circuit. It's from Robot Chicken, the one where
Palpatine.
Like Darth Vader calls Palpatine.
Yes.
He's like, then I threw the Senate at him.
Yes.
But it smells like Bigfoot's dick. That's from Anchorman.
Well, with that being said, Jerry, how are you doing? Everything okay, bud?
I'm doing pretty good, Scotty. I'm pretty good. Oh, yeah, pulling tight. Let's get in here. I'm back in my regularly scheduled...
studio?
Yeah, I'm in the studio. I'm down here in the Saw basement. Moonlights is Saw.
Speaking of Saw Basement, can you elaborate more on what I said earlier about the creepypasta thing? Just so our fans can get that out to you, because I love this idea. It's a typical Jerry idea. So, Jerry, elaborate more on what I was trying to say, okay? Well, because this is going to be our Halloween episode, which is going to be recording a week from today.
What did we do? We had like other ideas for Halloween kind of stuff, and then they kind of got shut down.
This came through, though. This was a good one.
Well, and I don't know how many of you, well, if you're a patron of Beyond the Blast Doors Network, then you know that I'm a little bit of a spooky guy. You know, I like the spooky stuff and all that. Love Halloween, all that kind of stuff. I'm honestly like Christmas a little more. But it's not Christmas time, so we're not going to do a Christmas episode.
There we go. What are we doing?
We are going to have you, the listener, write your own Star Wars-themed creepypasta. What is creepypasta, you might say?
Plain, yes.
It is not, as some say, spooky spaghetti or some like macaroni. I don't know. It is creepypasta. It's basically like a copy paste form of horror writing. It's like basically short horror stories.
Yeah.
Born on the internet. There are a lot of good ones. There's a lot of really bad ones, hilariously bad.
When people write theirs, what do you want from, like, both? Somewhere in the middle? Funny? You want something like, what is your dream of this?
I want you guys to be as creative as possible. Make us laugh. You can write a creepypasta about characters in the Star Wars universe, like Luke, Han, Leia, Rey, Finn, Poe, Ben, whoever you want.
Mine is going to be a Gonk droid, and I'm excited to write that one. I've been thinking about that one a lot recently. So
me and Scotty I think Scotty's going to write one, and I'm thinking about actually looking to see if I can find one on the internet,
like a real one?
To see if there is one, to see what it is. Maybe that'll set the bar. But and we might have a special guest.
Yeah,
we'll have to see. We might have people who will be like sending in their own readings, but we are going to do a lot of the reading. We want you to type up, just be creative. You can do, again, in universe, you can do a meta one about fandom.
Nice.
Be creative, be like ridiculous, be funny if you want to. Just be super meta, be super weird, be Bombadcast, right? Of course. We're going to have a lot of fun just like reading these out to you guys, maybe getting a little spooked. Who knows? Maybe is there a Wampa behind me? Ooh, we're gonna have a lot of just real Halloween fun. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. It's like a Bombadcast spooktacular or whatever.
So if you're listening today,
yes.
Be sure to get the submissions in. Our episode's going to drop on that one. We're going to have that one, everything like recording and coming out. But the next day is going to be when we start recording that episode. So be sure to be checking out Twitter. We'll be making posts along the way, so hopefully you'll be caught up. But Jerry, I'm stoked for that, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Get your submissions in by the time if you're watching this on the day it drops.
Yeah,
you better hurry up. And look, make sure that they are not any longer of a read than 2 minutes. So we have time to read everyone's. And Scotty's getting started right now. Look at him. He's just typing away. Frittering away on his little typewriter there. It's an old-timey typewriter. I don't know where he really pulled it from, actually, for our audio listeners. I was going to say, anyway, type them up. Make sure it's not longer than 2 minutes. And just if you want to do there's the whole 2-sentence horror stories even. Do something like that. Rick McCallum answered the phone. He said, dude, on the other end. It was Liam Neeson's wig from the desert. Haunting him. Remember that wig really set him off. But that kind of stuff, or if you want to be scary, try to spook us. So I think we're unspookable.
I think it's going to be a fun episode. I'm looking forward to it. And also, it hasn't been decided officially yet. We're trying to make November a little bit more of a themed month for the Phantom Menace. So we're trying to figure that out right now. So stay tuned. More than likely, we'll have the Holo Chronicle boys on there to talk about some Phantom Menace merch. We'll even bring up some things like the Boot to Eve Classic as well. We have a kind of
have
funny,
some special surprises.
We might have two guests just come on and take over the show. We'll see. Both are returning guests, so I'll let you think about that for a while. But
well,
Jerry,
I think.
No. What do you want to bring up?
I was going to say, I think one of them is just kind of upset with us talking about them so much.
Yes. Yeah.
But Scotty, I just had a little bit of a brain thing. What if, because there's 4 episodes, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What if the last one we let the listeners and viewers decide what topic from the Phantom Menace they want us to talk about?
I'm fine with that. Let's make that happen.
Let's do it. What do you guys want us to talk about from the Phantom Menace the last week of November? Let us know.
I'm writing that down before we forget.
Send that and your creepypastas.
Well, with all that being said, Jerry, I've got I'm not gonna lie. For anyone listening, if you lived through the Bombad buildup, which actually started a year ago, like right now, do you realize that? Seriously.
Holy crap.
I know. And what
even surprises me even more is we found out in our 50th or in our 1 year anniversary episode, people actually listened to those.
Really liked it. Yeah, I thought that was incredible. But
you suckers.
I have an episode for us today that is of that level, and I want to get really philosophical here. I want to get really spiritual. I think this is going to be one of those episodes that people can go back and listen to and really enjoy, because the things I have researched, the topics that Jerry and I are going to cover today, do a lot with the Force, right? And not just the Force in general. It is in particular the living and the cosmic force. And what kind of stemmed this idea was Eric and I, of course, we were hanging out. Eric Cotterman, famed guest of the show. We're sitting there just hanging out one night, and we watched the Yoda arc at the end of season 6 of Clone Wars. Now, if you haven't watched that arc, pause this, watch it, come back, because I want to get your mind in that mindset. So that's kind of how Jerry and I went there, right? And in terms of arcs, Jerry, where does that one lie on your list? Because I know exactly where it is on mine.
It's definitely towards the top for me.
Yeah,
because definitely. I remember when that season came out, right after Disney bought Star Wars, and we're canceling Clone Wars. But then they were like, well, we're going to do these Lost Missions on Netflix. I remember watching through those, and I was like, this is the best stuff they've ever done. There's they added so much to Revenge of the Sith. You've got the Order 66.
Oh, you got 5.
That's one of my favorites, dude.
Yeah.
That whole arc is sick.
Oh, yeah.
And also, God rest Fives' soul.
Yep.
Because clones have souls.
Yes.
We'll get into it.
And also, where you get Cyphidius. That's one of them as well. That's that whole arc is in that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's actually the beginning of this one, right? Because I watched that episode, because that's kind of the genesis for why Yoda
goes
is meditating. Yeah. But you got the Rush Clovis arc in there that is...
Yes.
But I would say that this arc is definitely up there. And Scotty, I will say, when you started talking about you did all this scientific research and all this kind of I was wondering if you were doing a hardcore deep dive on the nip slip from Return of the Jedi, because I know you and Andy really had a fun time with that. So
I think it's a great scene, but I did not do that much.
Let's get into it frame by frame.
Good job at pulling that. That's a good one. I did do some research on that when I was younger, but now that I'm an adult, I care more about the realistic things of Star Wars, and this in particular, this discussion is pretty incredible. But no, that arc for me too, Jerry, is one of those ones that are really high on my list in terms of Dave and George totally having a hive mind thing here, because I know George was still very much involved with this last season.
Yeah.
And I really do think when it comes down to it, this story was I think George is last, before you hug your kid before they go to their first day of school, that was George's last little hug before Disney, Star Wars was, then bought out by Disney. That was such a great episode to end Clone Wars on at the time. Now we've got a really good, definite ending. But at the time, for years...
Which I was going to say, that's probably... People have a brand new arc that's their favorite now, probably.
Yeah, of course. And for a while, that was my favorite. That one was my favorite of all time. And it still, to a certain extent, is. But the reason why I want to bring this up, because I think midichlorians, and I made a very controversial tweet recently. It was one of those videos where, like, you know, someone has like a table thrown at them and they're like fighting against a ton of people. It's like, what's one thing you would think that would like break, you know, Star Wars fandom for you? Like, what could you say? And mine was that midichlorians are the greatest thing to happen to Star Wars since the Force was introduced, or something as bold as that. Because to me, someone that studied science for 4 years in college and someone that actually teaches science to kids, midichlorians are so true. And I think people have a hard time embracing that concept. It's something that George really introduced. And every year I teach cells and genetics at the very beginning of the year, and I'm in this mood right now where I like talking about it because I think cells are really interesting. But midichlorians are just things that live within ourselves, right? That's microscopic, that we don't understand, and we allow it to live in us and control us, right? I mean, if it wasn't for your cells, Jerry, you wouldn't be who you are in terms of what physically and mentally is pretty much makes you up all the way through.
I wouldn't be as handsome as I am.
No, and you but also
cells.
Exactly, your cells hold your genetic code, right? And that's what makes you a handsome guy. But like when it comes down to it,
really handsome cells.
Especially when it comes to, like, I've learned this recently. Whenever I've changed my diet up significantly, and I feel a difference in terms of how I feel when I wake up and when I'm doing certain things. And one thing I did not realize is whatever you feed yourself, it's not just going to be dissected and broken down in your stomach, but all your cells, all those microproteins that you need to survive are going to get distributed to all the cells in your body. When you breathe deeply, all the oxygen molecules will go through your body. The cells are going to break that down. Same with anything you ingest, you know, anything that you are around, good air, bad air, you name it, that stuff's going to go within your body and then pass back out when you breathe out. It's very spiritual, and I don't think people give that enough credit. You know what I mean? And and I get very deep into this thought process whenever I'm teaching. And one thing I thought was really important is that this episode really addresses that. You know, they take the midichlorian thing in these 3 episodes, in particular the 3rd episode of the arc, or I guess the 2nd of Yoda's journey, and you really kind of see and explore that. And one of the first times we hear this term living versus cosmic force was whenever one of the first lines, I believe, of the Phantom Menace is, "I have a bad feeling about this," which is Obi-Wan. And then the response is what, Jerry? What is the response Qui-Gon says?
Don't center on your anxieties, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs. Or he also said, be mindful of the living force.
Yes,
I forget, it's a big, long thing. I think that's what you were looking for.
Yeah.
But I kind of panicked. I kind of panicked right there. I won't lie.
You're right, though, because one of the lines is be mindful of the living force, which was like literally to start off the newest Star Wars film in 17 years that way. That's George just knew what he was going with after this, right? Yeah. George knew where he wanted to take the story.
We had microbiotic, baby.
So it's really important to bring this up. But that idea, he's like, live in the present. That's one thing that Luke never did, right? Luke always looked towards the future, always looking towards the horizon, both physically and both, metaphorically. That was Luke's problem. But Qui-Gon, since day one, is like, live in the present. This is where it's all going to happen. And it's really important to bring up the fact that the present's what you can change. You can change your present instantly. You can change it anytime. I could end this call right now. I would change my present. But the past is what's permanent. Everything behind you is permanence, right? You can access it. You can think about it, but it's already happened. In the future, like Yoda says, is what? What is the future always in?
Always in motion. The future is.
Yes. So I really kind of dwelled on this thought while watching this arc, and a lot of things ran through my head. And I love that the cosmic and the living force are both very different. And approaching this arc in the perspective of, analyzing it, understanding it has been really kind of beneficial for me, both on a Star Wars level, but also on a level of understanding, your own self and what you mean into this world, which is really kind of weird, and what it means to have things inside of you that actually manipulate and control you in a certain extent, right? It's kind of incredible. And I don't know, Jerry, having a chance to rewatch this arc now, after the Skywalker saga is over, we're in a whole different era of Star Wars. Is it kind of refreshing to you? What do you think?
A little bit, but I also want to just comment on just the way you said you watched that episode. Did you also happen, the listeners and the viewers want to know, Scotty, were you also partaking in a little bit of Nabooian basil? I
do not enjoy Dagobah skunk.
You don't have any like Gungan brownies.
No Gungan brownies. No EO brownies either.
A little bit of Bombad in your cookies or something. Some gummy bears.
To make a strain of marijuana, it would be called Stay Bombad.
Dude. We're gonna open up. That's how we become like weed magnates or something.
We're the magisters.
We just like go to Celebration with full like suits, like tuxes, but it's like weed leaf print. It's green and black and stuff. Yes. Just like like people are playing that like we're in the money, we're in top hats and all that. Like freaking
putting on the Ritz,
like freaking Dumb and Dumber, but actually like successful.
Well, I was not under the influence of any of this what you're referring to, but really,
you were just open. Your mind was already opened to the cosmic force.
Yes.
But to answer your question, the new era of Star Wars, there is a lot. They are really, it is really awesome the way they're fleshing things out.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's still very vague to where you could... Like, George, his whole thing was... he wanted to do something that was modern mythology that would mimic... And he studied all these religions, right? He was like, I want it to be reminiscent of, like, all these world religions and stuff. Yeah. To have the philosophy and things in it, but to be, like, its own moral... hierarchy. It's a way to get morals to kids.
Yeah,
that's what most major religions teach.
Yeah,
for the most part, right?
Yeah, and
so
this one takes that moral aspect, because in this episode in particular, it's about letting go of your fear and letting go of your understanding of yourself and like allowing things to happen that are not in your control, right? That's what it means to live in the present. You're not focusing on yourself, you're focusing on the moment, right? And I think that's one thing that is really cool, is because we see that a lot in the sequel trilogy. One of the first lessons Rey learns from Luke is to feel the force around you, live in that moment.
Yeah.
Feel, I think one of them was
the force isn't some power that you have, which is talking to every angry fanboy.
Yes. It is it's you feel death, you feel decay, you feel happiness, you feel sorrow, you feel anxiety. All these things are what you feel like in the moment, and if whatever you embrace ultimately defines your path, which is really important, because your attempt at changing your future, right? Whatever you think your future is, and in particular, we've got 3 of the Skywalkers that suffered from this. You've got Anakin, Luke, and Ben. They foresee their future, right? They think they know their future, but their outcome's never going to be the same. We know that Anakin obviously is the biggest one, the premonition of Padme dying. That's what he sees. That's the cosmic force telling him, this is what's going to happen if you go down this path. But what does he do? He goes down the path that leads him to that future, right? That was his...
He tries, trying to stop it is what ends up...
Okay. Yeah. Then we got Anakin. We got Luke. Ignites the green, baby, but over Ben. He had a moment of he knew what was going to happen to his future, but Luke did not ponder that was because of what he was about to do. He was following the will of the Force, but he did not live in the present. He was worried too much with the future. And then last but not least, you got Ben, who was going to finish what his grandfather started. You know, he wanted to kill and end the Jedi. But little did Ben know is that was actually going to save the one. He was going to give that legacy of the Jedi to someone by saving their life, which he ultimately fulfills Anakin's first desired thing. And it's really kind of important to bring up the fact that, you know, once Ben fades away, that is the last of the Skywalker lineage, and now it's up to Rey. And one thing I got to bring up too is that Ben did in turn force heal. He gave some of his, what I would think are midichlorians, to Rey to keep her alive. Would that be too far to say, or what do you think about that? I think it was transfer, because we learned, and I'll tell you all about this in the Plageuis novel.
Okay,
Plageuis is something very similar. But anyway, I want to hear your opinion on this.
Well, when I think midichlorians, I think the actual physical apparatus, like of your body, where that's basically the physical part that holds the soul or whatever, or holds the, you know, it isn't, because a lot of people were like, so the Force is just these microscopic things. I never have thought that that's what they were saying. It's always like they basically are like they're like the antenna.
They channel
with which that you can, But I will say, I don't know about, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible and stuff, and you're probably going to tell me some stuff but like, wouldn't it have been kind of funny if Ben like took out like an IV and was like,
and then plugged into her?
Like he just did a blood transfusion right there.
Hey, I mean,
boom, you're Skywalker now. Give me a cookie.
The coolest thing with the Force healing thing is that, you know, the child did it first in terms of canon, what we've seen in canon, you know?
That's still so wild.
How wild
that's going to be so forgotten, because that was the week.
That was insane.
Or before.
That was the night, what was it, like,
it was the night before.
Yeah, literally, like, think about that. That's incredible. But, you know, the crazy thing is, the child did not do it out of, you know, I have to do this. He did it because he was like, someone's hurt, I'm going to help them.
Yeah,
and
selfless.
It shows exactly, the Force wills you to be selfless. And Ben, in turn, you know, was looking around, what am I going to do? And he's like, I got to do this. And he transfers his life essence, or he transfers his, in particular, I would say his midichlorian, not midichlorians, but he willed the midichlorians to transfer what little life he had left in him into her, right? They are a dyad. Maybe they're the only ones that can do that, you know? Maybe, you know, maybe only those individuals can transfer the energy, because Baby Yoda did it to another person. I don't know, actually. That's kind of contradicting now. I don't know. But I can tell you this much.
If he gave her didn't give her his midichlorians, did he give her his all the way chlorians?
He shoved it in there.
I didn't know how to make that joke. I've been sitting here actually trying to think of how to make that joke.
But one thing I need to bring up, because I think, and it's not an understatement, people do not like the idea of midichlorians, and I've always thought they were kind of interesting, you know. As a kid, I didn't understand them, but as I've grown up and the more I get into this fandom, the more I really kind of get it. And I'm going to kind of quote verbatim how it was stated in the Phantom Menace. In particular, when Anakin, I
think people really get that. I think this is really one of the most misunderstood parts of Star Wars.
Yes, frankly. It is. You're right. So, Jerry, can you play the role of Anakin right now, and I'll play the role of Qui-Gon Jinn?
Okay, sure. Hold on. Actually, this last week, you can catch me and my wonderful character performances on Coruscant University. Right? That's the name of...
No, Nerd Academy. Come on.
No, not Nerd Academy.
Oh, wait.
I played a Tauntaun Keeper on Coruscant U. Do you not keep up with my portfolio, Scott? Come on, man. Look at my IMDb, all right? That's all I got to say.
But anyway.
The arsonist has oddly shaped feet. Teeth in the tongue in the lips.
I will be the role of Qui-Gon Jinn. I will not do a voice. I will read it as stated. So
you're not gonna. Anakin. Oh, come on. You got to be. Give us your best Liam Neeson.
Midichlorians are microscopic life forms.
Oh my gosh, that's actually not bad. Okay, ready?
Here we go.
Master, sir, I heard Yoda talking about midichlorians. I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
Midichlorians are microscopic life forms that reside within all living cells.
They live inside me.
Inside your cells, yes. And we are symbiotes with them.
Symbionts?
Life forms living together for a mutual advantage. Without the midichlorians, life could not exist. We would have no knowledge of the Force. They continually speak to us, telling us the will of the Force. And then they just walk away, and like they just go into the ship. Bye-bye. And
okay.
Yeah, pretty much. But you know what's interesting? Is that I recently over the summer took a deep dive into the Plageuis novel, and Plageuis actually watched that scene occur from a different building.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. But anyway, that conversation was really disliked by a lot of people. But I think now when I reflect on it, even being a teacher teaching it, I think it's actually kind of a profound thing. But Jerry, what do you interpret when you hear that scene? Because this is where the Force gets scientific. And I think that's an awesome thing for me. It was spiritual in the 80s and 70s, but to now in the 90s and early 2000s, it's scientific. So what do you think is your aspect? Where do you approach this?
I think I've talked a little bit before about how I didn't mean to go 3D on you guys there for a second. I think I've talked a little bit before about how I kind of liken it to, again, I'm of Christian faith, right? And we both are. And I've always, there's always, people think there's that war between Christians and science, and in the mainstream, that's the way a lot of people like to portray it and stuff. But to me, I've always thought that science, to me, there's no way that science really disproves any faith.
Yeah.
I mean, again, unless it's flat Earth faith or something.
Sure, or any denial of modern physics or actual modern day science,
or denial of epidemiologists. Get to.
No, I agree. But you're thinking in terms of literally taking what we know spiritually versus what we know on a metaphysical level, right?
Well, because to me, the world is the world, right?
Yes.
And everything that exists in the world is something that exists in the world. Yes. We feel this spirituality, no matter what faith you are. You feel a connection. There's something in us as humans, whether you believe we were created, evolved, or even whatever.
Yeah.
There's something in us that makes us look beyond. And whether that's just an evolutionary response or that's something put in there by a god or deity or whatever.
Yeah.
It is still something. There's something to us that a lot of people call essentially the soul.
Sure.
And stuff like that. And so I've always seen science is just describing the processes of how stuff works.
Sure. And
to me, it never has been about, God can't exist, or Buddha, whoever you believe in can't exist because evolution and all that. Because to me, even I can read Genesis about God creating the earth and go, he could have done that through evolution, frankly.
Yeah.
You talk about 7 literal days, or somewhere else in the Bible it talks about a day to God is 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Or to 1,000 years is as a day to God. And so it's just, but that's kind of where I fall on it. I apply that to this, where it's of course, everything comes from the Force. The Force is created by life, and also created life is we're kind of seeing.
Well, it's interesting because
it's both sides.
If you take it from a really scientific point of view, you know that within everything there's other living organisms, but then there's some organisms that are made of just one thing. Just a unicellular organism that has the same functions and desires as human beings do in terms of we need to eat, we need to reproduce, and we need to make sure that we continue to live,
Right.
That is the desire that I share with a plant, that you share with a shark, that we both share with a fungus. Like, it's really kind of interesting,
Mm-hmm.
And when these symbiotes, or when these organisms work together, they make a greater, more complex organism, which in turn is us, or a deer, or bark on a tree. Like, it's so weird to think, because the Force, yes, is a spiritual thing, but what is different than the energy I make than the energy that's made by, let's say, a tree? We both need each other, right? The tree, us and trees are symbiotic. I breathe out carbon dioxide. It, in response, gives us oxygen. It's symbiotic. We live together. We are mutually benefiting from each other's existence. And through millions of years, it's the same exact thing. And I think it's interesting because whenever Yoda travels to this planet, right, the only life form, the only living life forms we see on that planet are all plants, right? They're all fungal looking. It looks like what's the place? Pandora and Avatar.
Yeah.
It looks like the areas, and that's
it's definitely of that early 2000s space planet kind of a thing, where it's like, we've got to be weird and out there,
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because, for a character who's so spiritual, he goes on a very spiritual journey, but the explanation of this spiritualism is all through science. It's this planet, and I pointed this out to you before we started, Jerry, but it's so cool that the wellspring of life, which is actually all behind us right now, the wellspring of life was like this area that just emits midichlorians, and it's just the little gold orbs that float around. It completely emits midichlorians, and you see it, and the outside of it's lifeless. But once you go into the actual planet, what is it, Jerry? What do you see?
It's verdant, which is a great word. It's teeming with life, and new life is just created constantly.
How cool is it too when the priestess touches that one plant? It dissolves, and then it becomes these little orbs that float right up to the sky. Yeah. So to think that those midichlorians will then pass through, let's say, a new person, or maybe even a person in the moment, is really kind of awesome. And that journey was from Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon sent Yoda there, and I think that's really kind of interesting. The person most mindful of this concept was Qui-Gon in the end of it, right? So I don't know, the whole idea of it is just super George and super Dave. It's like they really just like perfectly melded it together. And I've always wanted to see this planet show back up. The wellspring of life is actually a really cool idea. It's it's almost like old storytelling too, like the Fountain of Youth,
Yeah, like, it's very mythic.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't realize till watching it now is R2 couldn't see any of this, right? R2 was like, I pick up no life systems, no life forms, and then Yoda's like, oh, it's teeming with life, which is really, really kind of awesome. And I don't know, I like that the planet looked really prehistoric too. It looked it looked old, and all the plants that inhabit it were really, giant and long and very pretty. But we get introduced to a character that I think might be one of the more mysterious ones. I remember people thinking Snoke would be one of these things, but isn't that funny when you think about it in retrospect? But a Force priestess, and she embodied 5, or he, or regardless of, there's no gender there, embodied 5, I guess priestess, it is a female then. But she, which is kind of cool, the Force is female, Kathleen.
Force is female, boys.
Oh, that's sick.
Cry those fanboy tears in the mug, boys.
That is awesome.
We don't care.
That is
Come on, Disney Star Wars' dumb word press. Please write about us, please. That's like the last accolade I want. That's the only thing I want in life now, is for Disney Star Wars' dumb WordPress to write about the Bombadcast.
That's amazing.
Maybe if I say this, Doomcock is dumb.
So, on top of that, the priestess embodies 5 particular personalities. Yeah. Which the one I think is the most important is Serenity. She's probably the leader of the crew. But also she embodied anger, confusion, joy, and sadness, and it was very evident as to who was which character, and it kind of felt
like the 7 dwarves.
It felt like Inside Out. It felt like Inside Out,
Yeah.
Like Yoda had to go on this journey. But the cool thing about Yoda was in this arc is he had to let go of what he already knew, which he ends up telling Luke to do later. And of course, like you said, Ezra is another good example of who Yoda kind of guides in the same
right
way. But I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. What do you think of the multiple personality aspect of this? Where do you go from with that? Because that's all the Force. That is the Force manifesting, right?
Right. Well, and and what's funny is they were an alien species of some kind, and the way she put it is, we have like at the end of that episode, she takes off her mask to reveal, and she dematerializes except for her robe. Yep. Like when you become one with the Force.
Oh, that's pretty good. And Obi-Wan there, and Leia.
Yeah. But
and Luke.
Yeah. Did you I thought, because I thought that was like, I was like, oh, cool. So that's like. Sick. But I think something that I really got out of it was, again, we're talking very spiritual stuff. Yoda, the most spiritual Jedi we consider him like infallible, right? Mm-hmm. Infallible. And he is basically kind of schooled here because he's I know all that I need to know. And it's a very good lesson again for him to learn before Empire Strikes Back of, like, he learns the whole thing about wars not make one great. Patience is what you need. You need it's very humbling of him because they go, you have to go defeat your darkness.
Yes. But he said he already did.
So he thinks he already did. But I love that. But just back to the priestesses and stuff, it's a really good metaphor for, like you brought up Inside Out. It's a great metaphor for this is a great, it's that modern mythology, the tales on how to live your life that George wanted to make, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just him going, oh, shoot, I forgot to put that in Revenge of the Sith. Oh,
yeah.
Crap. Give me a Hershey bar and a Diet Coke. I'm going to pull an all-nighter. It was like, it was kind of a do-over for him for that, but it was very much like a great metaphor. Like, one thing that I've heard mental health professionals say about Inside Out is it's a really good tool for them to, when they're like talking to children about their emotions and stuff. It's a good way to talk to your child about emotions, like who's driving right now, and stuff. And it was a great like kind of allegory for them to get their heads around of like, I'm feeling this, so this person is driving.
Yeah.
Where you've got all of those different personalities, and then Serenity is the one who's doing most of the talking.
Yes.
And it's like she's not bored, but she's just Serenity. It's at peace. Matter of fact. Right?
Yeah. Peace. Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm at peace with whatever happens and stuff. Yeah. I'm calm and I'm okay.
Which is what everyone, in terms of Star Wars, when a Jedi passes into the next, life, death is the first step, really. When I think that was actually the quote of the episode, I believe, is death is only the beginning. I think that was it. And whenever a Jedi dies, or we see that when they flow to the Force, that release is, you're right, dude. That totally, I guess, goes with the point you just made, it's peacefulness. It's awesome.
Well, it's like, it just makes me wonder, was it one being? Yeah. And they became one with the Force, and that's how they manifest? They were like the first?
Okay.
I don't know, but it's almost like, because we find in the Force that there are all these almost godlike beings.
Yes. The Bindu.
Weird characters in the side, too. Like the Bindu, who is a little more earthly, right? He's a little more of like a fallen angel almost type, or just like a creature who, hey, this is where I'm at. But also, I'm thinking of like the father, the son, and the daughter.
Oh my God, yeah.
Which I thought Snoke was one of those beings.
Which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Because honestly, they're very tall, human-like things.
But we'll actually get to the point where we discuss this idea of essence transfer, which is definitely going to show up later in this. Because I don't know. we see that serenity can refer to both light and dark. Maybe, I don't know. That's where it gets interesting, because they're technically, if you were to look at the cosmic and the living force, we know that the living force creates the energy of life, okay? That flows into the cosmic force, okay? That's the response. So the response of the cosmic force is to give the will of the cosmic force. So your living force will then be channeled through the cosmic force, which then, if you give energy to that, you will hear the will of the force. And like, there's a couple of things we'll take away from that, is that most Jedis abide the will, okay? Or they find some way to abide the will. They listen to the will of the force. But we know that Sith and Jedi might hear different things. So we don't know what the cosmic force is really ultimately trying to convey. And right?
Sorry.
No.
I actually just had this thought. Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
Well, I just had a thought when you said that. You don't know what they're hearing. If they're hearing it too, or they're getting mixed messages. It almost seems like the nature of Jedi is to listen to the will of the Force.
Yes.
And to use the dark side is actually to move against the will of the Force, which is why it's out of balance.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, it's on our side because we're using the dark side. It's that they're on the dark side because they're not listening to the will of the Force. The will of the Force is to continue life, right?
Exactly.
They're like, no, I want to bend it to my will.
There we go.
I'm not listening to its will. I'm going to bend it to mine.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
That's very, because they're all about self. What Yoda in the next episode, or the episode where he goes to Moraband, is like, Sith are obsessed with the physical realm and stuff. That's all they're trying to just keep it in the here and now.
Yes.
As much power as they can get, as much they want it all. They don't care who they step on.
With Momin, and also that one premonition that he has of Bane, being existing, you are Darth Bane, you established World War II, and it's obviously Mark Hamill, which is so cool to watch that now. And
those like witchy Sith with the weird face plates too, with like the really pointy hats.
So like it's cool to think that
they live in Halloween Town or something.
Dude, come on now.
I freaking love them though. It's amazing.
Oh no, I
love that George was like, you thought the Sith were just like cool like versions of, it's like all Darth Sidious's and like badass Darth Vaders without like a top helmet. But no, it's a bunch of dudes with fingernail masks in stovepipe hats. Dude. It is like the mayor of Halloween Town in
colonial times.
In Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, that's amazing.
You can see George just going, meh, fanboys.
So
you guys suck.
So when it comes down to it too, as well, like you bring up a good point. Like the dark side of the Force, they cling to life. Like that's all they have. And you notice that, obviously death can either allow you to manifest somewhere new, or you can allow it to pass through you. It's good to die to a certain extent,
right?
And I love.
And the only they care about life, but the only life they care about is theirs, right there. Yes. What they can get.
But you got to realize the selfless thing is to give yourself to the cosmic force, right? When your living force dies, your essence, your energy transfers, and I'm fixing to get real science on you.
Well, here we go.
When you die, okay? When you die, literally, and they put you in a casket, okay? I don't know if any of my younger listeners are listening now. Your body will rot, okay? And things will break.
It's existential, kids.
Well, it's serious too. Your body will rot. Your body will be broken down by microorganisms, and then your energy that you had created and you had got from your parents and from the food you ate and from the things you took in is going to then be expanded to that world below you, okay? And then bugs will eat that, things will eat that, and this essence is going to continue to transfer. So it's all really cyclical, right, Jerry? So when you really think
Happy Halloween, kids.
Well, I teach this. Around this time of year, I teach all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm teaching rock cycle, life cycle, all that stuff is taught right now. And you got to realize all of this is very cyclical, okay? So we know that energy can either be created or destroyed. It just transfers. It changes, right? It's not going to go away. It slowly changes. Same with life. Life's a cycle, okay? That energy is never going to go away. Your energy will go through and be someone else's energy at some point. Same with the earth. The energy of the earth, y'all, the rock cycle, it's going to be cyclical, okay? There's subduction when those plates go underwater, those continental plates go under the ground into the mantle of the earth will churn back up, and then once, a divergent, or not a divergent boundary, like a mid-ocean ridge forms, that energy, those rocks, that molten magma is going to become rock again. Okay, the cycle is going to keep going. And same with water, y'all. The water you have on Earth now is the same exact water that's been on Earth for millions of years. It has just been cycled through and through. And George found a way to tap into that, right? Mm-hmm. George found a way to tap into that thinking. If you die, your living force becomes cosmic. You become one with the force, literally. And then at some point, that force energy, wherever it comes from, whoever supplies it, the midichlorians, will then go back into something else. It's going to keep cycling through. And I think it's such a cool concept to think about, right? It's your continuation after you're gone. And I think, to me, I almost like this more than any other religious explanation of death, right?
Well, and even our atoms, right?
Yes.
That make the very atoms that make up us.
Yes.
Like, are from different things and stuff, like the universe and all that kind of. It's a little mind-blowing, and it is almost like, I know what you're saying. It's like you almost like that more than religious explanations, but that's where I go to, is like, also it makes some of those even more, like, to me it makes it even more amazing, where I'm like, oh, okay, that I don't have to lose my faith for any of that, because
that actually proves your faith to a certain.
It proves that, like, that everything is just recycling over and over and over again.
Yes,
is insanity.
Yes.
It's a great system. It's a great system, but it's also just like, what the heck is going on? Guys, I hope that you've rolled up a giant, big bowl for this episode and are just, like, toking it up, okay? Michigan, it's legal. So, Lauren and Andrea over on the other side of the state, hey, man, 420.
Light it up. So it's so important to bring up, though, is that these thoughts, we have, of course, like Jerry's alluding to, can be brought on by this. But if you really approach life from this point of view, it's really kind of impressive. I think it's something that, to kind of go back to the letting go of yourself statement, the Force Priestess literally says this: at death, in order to preserve your identity, you must know yourself. And that's the first lesson she gives Yoda. Mm-hmm. Your true self. And you must let go. So we see this happen. We literally see this happen on screen. Yoda literally lets go of his true self, and his force, his essence, goes through the force. And we see this happen with everyone except for the Sith, right? Anyone that dies a Sith, they cling to life. Maul, clings to life, like literally clings to life, to enough to become this wretched, evil creature that lives in the pits.
Well, he survives because of his own hatred.
Yes.
Which is like clinging. There's so much symbolism in Star Wars. I love it. It's like that hate is a powerful thing.
Sure, and of course.
Everything. There's so much in all of that.
For Dooku, look at Dooku. Dooku, if you were to really take down these villains in the prequels and you really think about it, Dooku had a meta death. He was his Jedi death occurred, okay? Then he took on a whole new being who manifested the Force. And then, of course, he dies at the will of his master's new apprentice. And that's the rule of two right there. Zoom, head cut right off. Grievous is constantly clinging to life. Grievous is literally a walking, like he's like a science experiment. His chest cavities.
He's all the major organs that you need, just like shoved in a really kick-ass metal skeleton.
Dude, and it's so important to think about it. They're all clinging to this life. They cannot accept the fact that they are on the verge of dying, both spiritually and physically, right? And so then you get to the ultimate representation is Vader, right? Vader's ultimate.
Go ahead with your point.
Well, he meta died, right? Anakin's dead on a meta
There was
level.
a death of Anakin.
Yes. Yeah. And then there was a birth of Vader, and Vader is nothing but robotics meets human, and it's this clean
more machine now.
Yes. And then the last one, the biggest one of them all, is Palpatine.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going there or not.
No,
but that's exactly because that is the most combination of science and black magic we've seen in Star Wars yet. Oh, yes. You talk. Palps your boy. Palps is your boy, man.
Palps is one of the few characters I think is the most important in terms of when you analyze this from that perspective. We learned that, of course, in the Rise of Skywalker novelization, that Palpatine had the ability to transfer his force, his life essence to a clone body of himself, right? Mm-hmm. But that essence could not travel properly, so it went into this decrepit body. It couldn't sustain life like it should have.
He didn't. Well, he wouldn't have had the selflessness, right? But he figured out how that he cheated. He's cheating it. It's the whole, I'm not going to go with the will of the Force. I'm going to bend it. He is the ultimate. I'm bending it to my will. I want it my way.
I completely agree with that because the whole entire time, the whole entire time you've got Palpatine, like, he even tells Anakin, the ability to cheat death is some consider to be unnatural, which my boy Jerry called it verbatim.
Pour one out for the homies.
Dude, I still never forget how that made me feel. But
I was, and shout out, I'm trying to think here, to Dr. DeVore.
Yes.
For giving me the shout out, man. I was poo-dooing a brick in that movie theater.
So it brings a good point, though. That Palpatine is the perfect example of it now because he learned that from his master. Now, we know Plageuis is not canon. I am waiting for the day they rewrite that novel or they make it canon because I have an excerpt from Plagueis' Wikipedia page. Can I read it?
I was going to say,
sure.
Speculation here. What if that, and I forget what they call that harness. It's a something harness.
Oh, it's sick. Hold on, I'll look it up while you're.
It's like the most bad metal band name or something.
Oh, give me 1 second.
It's but anyway, what if, Scotty, and I kind of almost want to hold off until you find it, but just the whole thing about him, how it was the black magic meets the science that is not FDA approved, so to speak. But you've got, that crazy machine that he's on, injecting whatever kind of liquids into his clone body, who he's going through these clone bodies. They're rotting from the very, his very essence. They're not strong enough because they weren't ready when he went in there to hold him.
Nope.
And, I'm still ready. By the time you're hearing this, that book has come out that's, talking all about what Snoke is and all that, but what's it called?
The Star Wars fact? Is it called Everything Star Wars? Something like that.
It's just called the Star Wars book, which I think is a great title.
Give me 1 second. I think I just the Omen Harness.
The Omen Harness.
OMMIN.
Omen Harness.
Oh my God!
It was like Lord Omen or something. It was named after a Sith Lord. But you've got this Omen harness. Here's where I was going with that, though, Scotty. You were talking about Plageuis. What if Plageuis was getting that place ready?
So,
and then Palpatine stole all of that. Dude, a new Plageuis novel is going to be sick.
Oh, my God.
Because you can put so much in it now.
If it's written by James Luceno again,
you can have that whole, you could have still the bones of that story, but then add something about him finding Exegol and all this, or and something about the cultists.
For anyone that hasn't read Plagueis, I'll give you a run through real quick of it. Really good backstory as to how he set up the Trade Federation invasion. That was pretty much the whole story. But during it, the entire approach to it is Plagueis understanding how to cheat death, okay? And he does it from a perspective of midichlorians. And, Jerry knows this. I had a summer job over the summer where all I did was copy papers for the school I work for. Literally all day, 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day, I just copied papers and listened to this audiobook. And it really was, and I'm not going to lie, it sounds so bad. That was the best summer I've had in my entire life. Because all I did was to myself listening to this book. And I'm not going to lie, this book really helped me fall, not in love with Star Wars, but really gave me a new appreciation of this concept. So if anyone's on the fence about this book, on the fence about this concept, living, cosmic, and midichlorians, take some time, listen to the audiobook, or read the book. It is profound how it's approached.
Plageuis is one of the greatest of the EU novels.
Oh, yeah.
And it 100%. Frankly could still be put in canon.
Oh, dude. I really think to me, I love Thrawn, and I know you love the books. What would you like your favorite series, Jerry, or no?
Sorry. Gosh, I don't know. My favorite book that I've read yet, I think, I honestly loved the one that gave me the most emotional reaction was the Resistance Reborn.
Yeah.
Which people were pissed that it didn't have much to do with the story, but I loved that it was almost like a love letter to the entire new canon.
Sure, and that's important to bring up because what I like, I love the Thrawn novels, and the Thrawn novels weave that canon in here. But this book, this Plageuis book, does something I had never seen before in terms of canon, because I'm pretty sure this book came out in 2011, like right before the purchase. So like they didn't pull that much in terms of like really EU driven stuff here, right? And I really, really, really like how this is explained. So, Jerry, do you mind if I read this right now? It's from the Wikipedia.
Go for it. Pull it on tight.
So,
I don't know what I'm saying there.
So,
Put on your leotard.
Plageuis took the Force and looked at it from a very scientific point of view. Okay, so I'm going to read this verbatim. I'm going to pull it up on my screen real quick. All right, so Darth Plageuis sought to understand the Force in a purely scientific context. Doing away with the trappings of mysticism, he believed the Jedi had corseted with it. Okay, so he pretty much is saying that the Jedi had made it too mystical when it really wasn't. He accepted the classification of the Force aspects into three categories. The Aperion, which is the equivalent to the unifying Force. That's going to be the Force that brings everything together. The Anima, the equivalent to the living Force, and the Pneuma, which is the consciousness thought as expressed in the Force. Okay? His focus was the Midichlorians, which he believed that benefited from a uniquely strong connection to all three aspects that could be used to master life and death. All right? Apart from the extension and creation for life through midichlorians, Plageuis sought to explore such extreme and unusual applications as the direct manipulation of space-time and the continuity of consciousness after death, going as far as the essence transfer technique. So, he thinks that space and time could also be manipulated by midichlorians. He could slow down or speed up certain things through that way as well. Okay?
Which very much ties into the world between worlds and why Palpatine was going after it, buddy.
Yes. Okay. Jerry, I love you. I love you for that.
Hey, man, canon junkie.
So, Plageuis traveled to the Valley of the Dark Lords on Korriban, seeking contact with the long-dead Sith, but found none in the tomb of the Hagron Grosh or on the throne of Zora Sin. Okay? As he boarded his ship to leave the planet, however, he had a vision of an admonishing spirit of Marco Ragnos. Okay? The long-dead Dark Lord challenged Plageuis to claim the title and railed against his plan to dismantle the traditions of Korriban, but offered no answers to any of the Mun's questions or inquiries. After this experience, Plageuis remained unconvinced about the reality of life after death of the body. Okay? So, this former Sith Lord challenged him in a vision. So, this manuscript that he had, I guess, developed, okay? The manuscript also included his thoughts on the Mortis legend, in which the section claimed Plageuis that the idea of creating the Chosen One, okay? So, it says that Plageuis could have created the Chosen One, which we know as Anakin, Rey, whoever it is, not only to save the Jedi, but to be an extension of his will. So it would be a trivial matter once he had mastered the art of manipulating midichlorians. So the creation of the Chosen One would have been nothing compared to what he could have done later. Right? The surviving manuscript concluded with Plageuis' interpretation of the Sithari prophecy as the description of his achievements, even though he rejected the concept of the prophecy. So Plageuis didn't believe in it, but with a lot of thought, he could have actually manipulated and made what we know as a Chosen One. So, This is exactly from the book. This is exactly what Plageuis does. To say that the Force works in mysterious ways is to admit one's ignorance. For any mystery can be solved through the application of knowledge and unrelenting effort. As we had our way with the Senate, as we will have our way with the Republic and the Jedi, we will have our way with the Force, which is something really important to bring up, is they actually did get their way. Isn't that weird, Jerry? That they actually did get their way in the end. That the manipulating of the Force actually allowed Plageuis and Palpatine to pretty much achieve what they want, which kind of makes you really, really rethink this whole thing, right? You think that the lights of the Force is the way to it, but Palpatine and Plageuis had been manipulating it for so long that it would, tip the scales, right? It would tip the scales of our understanding. So pretty cool stuff. Now, this is where we're going to kind of end it on, all right? Around the year 42 BBY, okay, this is 42 years before the Battle of Yavin, okay? And we know this for a fact, really interesting. We know that Anakin was born 42 BBY, all right? So think about that. Anakin was born 42 BBY, and so was the child. That's a new thing that showed up. So sit on that for a second, okay? 42 BBY, so Anakin was 45 when he died, right? So here we go. Darth Plageuis finally took Venomous. Okay, Venomous was the secret apprentice that Plagueis' master had. Okay, so he then resurrected him and killed him again. So Plagueis killed him, brought him back to life, then killed him again, repeating the process until the Bith's organs gave out, and he finally died. Both Sidious and 11-4D, which was the robot, were present. Sidious and Plagueis then entered a meditative trance and managed to tip the scales of balance in favor of darkness. Plagueis attempted to go one step further and attempted to create life by mentally reaching out to the inhabitants of the galaxy, an act in direct violation of the nature of the Force. Plagueis and Sidious attempted to will a being of their own design into creation, pouring their malicious intent into the waves through the Force to countless midichlorians spread across the galaxy. So essentially, it tapped into the wellspring of life, and they pushed their dark side abilities through it. The experiment did not yield fruit. However, Plagueis perceived the Force growing silent to his probing. Immediately afterwards, Plagueis test subjects began to succumb to various diseases, and he set most of his survivors free. Some of the animals he had experimented on adapted to the forces of sojourn. Okay? Plagueis had developed a theory that the Force was actively opposed to the Sith efforts, and he saw the setback in the light. Okay? So how mind-blowing is that? That Plagueis 100% put his Force darkness out there, and the reaction of that Force darkness is just like what we see in The Force Awakens. Darkness rises and light to meet it, okay? So all these things that Plagueis decides to manipulate and change actually counteract what he's doing. So it's also kind of a metaphor for Anakin, right? He's trying to make the darkest being ever made, ever. That's his job, that he's trying to do, okay? And then they will up something else. They will up what we know as the Chosen One, or they could will up the child, which would be very interesting. Very interesting. But I don't know. Sorry for going down that rabbit hole, but
you better be.
Yoda's approach is so much more spiritual, while Plagueis' approach is much more scientific. The term balance, right? The term balance to me means somewhere right in the middle, both spiritual and both based in science. Now, after hearing all that, Jerry, how do you feel about Plagueis in terms of tying it in back to the cosmic and the living Force thing? What do you think about all of that?
He's almost like, excuse me, sir. Jack's got a lot of thoughts on midichlorians, so I think he just wants to play with them. Actually, what do you see? Anyway, I think there's some midichlorians on the ceiling right now. Yeah. I kind of like that it was like he did a lot of the legwork, and Palpatine was just like, thanks, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, which I think really is really Palpatine. He's like, oh, that's so, because then he gets the like loving grandfather, who just never settled down. He's the grandfather type, but I didn't have time for love, but now I give all my grandfatherly love to all my subjects and to you, Anakin. But but it's just like, that's so Palpatine to watch this man and look up to him.
Yeah.
But go through all of these steps and figure all of this out and go, ooh, okay. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
All right. But later smothers with a pillow or something, you know?
Well, he essentially, funny you bring it up. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but Palpatine does drain the midichlorians from him and kills him that way too, which is even more kind of powerful. You know, it's literally the night he becomes chancellor, or not chancellor. Yeah, the night the vote of no confidence. That night, where he got Plageuis drunk, and Plagueis' biggest fear was dying in his sleep, like seriously. And that's exactly how Palpatine gets him, because he is
a sadistic son of a gun, man.
Think about how perfect it is for this conversation, that Plagueis did his best to manipulate the Force, but the Force's reaction was, you are not going to do that. And in turn, if you really think about it, that Plagueis's, you wheeling something into the Force, which he could not do, or maybe he did do, we don't know the answer. Let's say he did, and it's Anakin. Anakin ends up killing Palpatine, right? Which technically kills him. And then the granddaughter of Palpatine comes back and is saved by the son of a Skywalker, or the child of I guess the heir as a Skywalker. It's
the heir apparent.
Freaking awesome if you tie it all together, because Rey also has a very amazing Force connection that we haven't brought up yet. Before Rey has her final moments, pretty much before she technically dies, she has a audible vision experience where all these people from another, I guess, area of the Force kind of show up, right?
The world between worlds, maybe,
and they all speak to her. Okay, and they give her encouraging words, rise, 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 and I don't know. I think if you approach the Force in both these contexts, I think you have a really, really expansive outlook of how you understand it.
Yeah.
I think
it's almost like you have to almost not be scientific, in that you have to just accept, again, like we were talking about earlier, like I kind of said, everything that exists in the world is in the world, right?
Yes.
So if there is this spirituality that is part of this tapestry, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it is one of the same with all of the nuts and bolts. Think about the way our brains work. We still do not understand.
Oh.
We're like in the dark ages still when it comes to understanding the human brain.
Yeah.
And you've got to think the Force is just this. What was the question?
No. I was just saying,
you know what I mean?
To have Rey, go through this spiritual experience in terms of hearing these people from, Jedi past, right? That's literally what it's called.
You've got to unlearn what you have learned,
Exactly.
as Yoda says.
Because the whole movie, what did she say when she's meditating right when you see her in the beginning of the movie?
It's like I can't. I'll never be able to hear the voices of Jedi past.
Yes, yeah. And she says, God, she has an exact phrase she uses though. Now I'm one with the Force. It's something like that though. I forget. But
be with me.
Be with me. Be with me.
There's just be with me.
Yep.
Be with me.
Yep.
I'm talking. He looks at me like, okay.
So I don't know. I think it's really important to bring all these things up, right? And that science have always kind of been there, and the only ones that kind of don't have this concept of it is the original trilogy. But that's the fun thing about expanding on this knowledge, right? You get more out of it when things are more developed. And I think this inclusion of science is really kind of a beautiful thing. I don't know. I love talking about this, if you can't tell. I think
absolutely.
It's the best things to talk about, because people instantly disregard it like, oh, the midichlorians are the powerhouse of the Force. Like, I mean, come on now. I get the joke.
The mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah. I get the joke, but at the same exact time, there really is something there. There is something so mind-blowing. I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. I really am. And I sit there and think
it's fascinating. It is.
It really is. And, I really kind of wish, this is the only time I say this kind of thing, but if George's original intent for the sequel trilogy was to explore this concept, well, I will say that is hashtag missed opportunity. I'm being dead serious. That would have been for
George's microbiotic trilogy.
Dude, that would have been crazy. That's George, though, pushing it.
Would have been off the wall, man.
Oh my God, it would have been nuts because it would have been.
What if he sat down to write that treatment like right after Revenge of the Sith and like, or maybe it was like right after Phantom Menace reviews came out and like all the like Red Letter maybe he watched Red Letter Media's breakdown of Phantom Menace,
angry writing,
and was like, you know what, I'm
my whole damn
F
thing.
all these guys. It's gonna be in someone's bloodstream.
Oh my God. We're
gonna zoom in. It's gonna be the Osmosis Jones of Star Wars. Can you imagine?
No, but
it's insane.
But if
I love him.
Let's be realistic. If George would have done it that way, we would have known no different. And half of us would have loved it, and then every one of us would have loved it 20 years later. It's just how it is. It's just George. But like,
who would be like, did you get the Osmosis Jones Kenobi action figure?
You know, it's interesting, though, because I don't know how it would have been an approach like Ant-Man, where they go into the subatomic world, where they're like between space.
That actually made it cool, right? Ant-Man made subatomic cool.
Yeah, so that is definite. That is really a way you could have approached it, 5 minutes in subatomic time. Or no, it was 5 hours. What was it? It was 5 hours.
Sorry, the cat almost knocked my light over. So
it's all good. But Jerry, to kind of wrap this all around, is there anything that you wanted to kind of close on in terms of this beefy discussion about, midichlorians and cosmic and living and what both those things really mean,
Not really. I think we've really kind of like beaten a dead horse isn't probably the right phrase to use for it, or maybe it is, because you're beating the dead horse and the dead horse becomes one with the ground, and the bugs eat the circle of life.
All cyclical. It is.
It all is. I mean, we had that moment, essentially, Luke telling Rey about the Force in Last Jedi is Simba and Mufasa talking about the circle of life in Lion King. But I think they've done a good job in the new trilogy in the Disney era of making the Force mysterious again. Yeah. It's like there's layers upon layers. And again, I still think that like midichlorians have never bothered me because they've always, to me, it's always been like, that's not what the Force is. That's not how the Force works. They are just like the antenna, right? Yeah. It's like the antenna that allows us to contact it. We're talking about it like it's real, but it is. It's real.
But it is. It is. Yeah. And it's, the one thing I would like to close on and end with in terms of the final thoughts is like, everything is cyclical, Yeah. Even trends you find in your own life. Like I find myself listening to music I listened to about 10 years ago. Like I discovered.
I'm doing that right now too.
Dude, it's weird. Right now, look, you're gonna love this. I discovered Ants Marching by Dave Matthews Band like 10 years ago, like almost to the month and time, because I heard it on the radio and I had my phone on shuffle doing yard work, and I have listened to that song like 7 or 8 times since like this morning.
That's fantastic.
It's weird. Things
that the ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching one by one, hurrah.
It's a.
That sounds like a Dave Matthews tune to me.
That's pretty much Dave Matthews.
Yeah.
But dude, it's weird.
Can you imagine Dave Matthews singing that song though? Sorry, go on.
No. But everything is cyclical, right? You as a person, you will cycle through. Your genetics have carried on through your next person, right? It's really so incredible that you technically, on a scientific level, never die. Your essence will continue, right? Your cells will continue. Your who you've made, Eleanor, will continue, and her genetics will continue as well. It's never going to end. There's no ending to it, okay? You are the outcome of this continuous cycle that will completely go on. And I think, one of the most interesting things, and I've been not thinking about death, but I really do think death is only the beginning. I think there really is a journey afterwards, not just I'm going to heaven, I'm going to hell. I think there is something else that we do not understand in terms of death, that there is a next step in terms of evolution or in terms of our understanding of what life really means.
I will say this for skeptics out there who, like you talk about and it's the spooky season, and you guys know we do, for our patrons, we have the Beyond show and stuff, but we barely understand this world, this existence is bigger.
Yeah.
The universe itself is
expanding. Yeah.
Is like, I mean, it's all a little too mind-blowing to even think.
Yeah.
We were watching the Animaniacs the other day, we're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney. They were singing that song and stuff. No offense to Mickey Rooney, you're a good guy. I think he's still kicking around. Man, no. I don't know.
But I agree with that statement because, there is a universe within all of us if you think about it from a microscopic level. And then if you take us, we are nothing compared to a universal aspect.
Don't they technically think that the universe is contained in this, basically the universe that we live in is basically the shape of a giant brain.
Yeah, so it is
almost.
And we know this, that space is always expanding, right? Mm-hmm. Space is a constantly expanding thing. And more than likely one day space will fold on itself. And these things will collide. These concepts and these literal, bodies of stars and systems will collide as well. And I think it's really important to bring up the fact that, there is no for sure answer in terms of anything, okay? We do know that when we die, we transfer. Something leaves us, right? It can be both spiritual and physical. And I think it's a great way to just tie this whole puppy together, Jerry.
Yes, I agree. Sorry, Jack, you're back up here. I didn't mean to shout in your ear. Hey, buddy, what do you think about the microbiotic world of the Force? Go ahead and give us a talk or a quote for the cover. No? Okay.
I like his input.
I thought what do you think about the nature of life and death, Jack?
Jack? We're waiting.
I think he's watching his own hair actually float around. It's funny because cats seem really intelligent.
Yeah.
Which they are. No offense. But he's watching his own hair float right now. I think.
So Jerry.
Just imagine being that's serenity.
That is serenity. You're right.
There.
No worries in the world. But Jerry, great discussion. I cannot wait out there. I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback on this one. I'm going to blast this all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say one thing, Jerry. I love doing this with you. I love talking about this. Jerry, what do the fans need to do? Not Stay Bombad. I want to say that today. But what do the fans need to do in terms to do the creepypasta? Because we got to get that out there.
All right, guys. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, and we'll see what's going on, you need to be having your creepypasta submissions for our Halloween episode in by the end of the day today, because we want to have them and kind of have our show laid out by the time we record it, and have it out by Halloween and stuff like that. So send us, basically, write a creepypasta. Creepypasta, it is copy-paste. It's like internet speak for copy-paste horror stories, short horror stories. So our Halloween episode falls on Halloween, okay?
Perfect.
So write about the Star Wars. It can be set in the Star Wars universe with Star Wars characters. It can be characters it can be new characters you make up. There was a whole vampire story in the comics that I completely skipped. You can copy that. I probably wouldn't even know. But I'm the canon junkie. Or you could do like a meta story of like the fandom, or someone watching Star Wars and something creepy happens.
Yeah.
Like you could honestly, most creepypastas these days, they were good back in the day. Most of them are just like you take a character from pop culture who's not scary and make them come and kill someone. You say like, I found this DVD and it had Mark Hamill on it, and I was watching it, and he said, "You're gonna die in a couple days." And I was like, "No, Mark Hamill," and I broke the disc because it still kind of freaked me out. And 2 days later, outside my window, the lightning illuminated a face, and it was Mark Hamill there with a creepy Joker grin. And he was like, "I'm coming to kill you because you liked The Last Jedi." That's an example of something you can do.
Looking forward to it.
And honestly, seriously, have fun with it. Be creative. Be as scary or as hilarious as you want. Seriously.
Awesome.
Just be bomb bad. We want to get a little creeped out, but we also want to like have fun with it. And again, we might have a special guest coming on. And by special, I mean Vincent Price himself. We are resurrecting him from the dead. No. But it is going to be we're going to try to have some fun people come in here. So
I'm really stoked for it. It's gonna be really awesome, and
it's gonna be it's the Bombadcast Spooktacular. We'll just call it that, or the the Bombadcast. I don't know. I think I said Stay Bombad.
I like that. Bombad.
Yeah, Stay Bombad. Anyway, get ready to get creepy, y'all.
Well,
okay.
If you want me to close it out, Jerry, if you can support us on Patreon, $5 a month.
Absolutely.
You contribute to all the people on our wonderful network, the Beyond the Blast Doors network. We get a good point at it right here, Beyond the Blast Doors network, one of the best.
That one right there.
Involved with. If you like all this and you've enjoyed everything in this show, support us on Patreon. And remember, you should always stay bad. Boom bad.
Boo!
Have a good one, folks. We will see you next week. Stay boom bad.